All right, welcome back to the Powers on Sports podcast. Appreciate you finding us. We are continuing our college football Power 5 conference previews, and now we are off to the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. And I'm very welcome to bring in Chris Bond. Chris is one of the founders of ACC Nation, which is a website that covers all things ACC. It's accnation.net is the web site link, and have a personal connection with Chris. Chris and I grew up together in the Tampa Bay area, and we actually went to the same high school at the same time together. So haven't hooked up with Chris in a long time. So it's glad I found Chris and saw that he was involved in the ACC conference. So welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Thank you, Jason. It's an honor, and it's most certainly an honor to cross paths with you again, a sophisticated gentleman like yourself, and ready to talk some ACC football this coming year.
Yeah, we got lots to talk about. First of all, we'll give the audience a quick little recap of last year. If you remember, it was Clemson and Notre Dame that was in the ACC title game, and you're wondering why Notre Dame. Well, last year with the pandemic, Notre Dame was allowed to join the ACC for the football season last year, so they ended up playing basically a full ACC schedule, and they were in the championship game. Clemson, they'd beaten Clemson earlier in the year up in South Bend, and then Clemson exacted some massive revenge in the title game with a beatdown of Notre Dame in the title game, and then Clemson went on to the playoffs. So that's kind of where we ended up the 2020 season. So we're up at the 2021. I'll hold off on Clemson, Chris, first, because we all think we know what Clemson's about. I want to talk about a couple of other teams as we get going. A lot of hype going into this 2021 season about North Carolina. Mac Brown, year 3. You got Sam Howell at quarterback, the Florida kid, who's a quarterback. A lot of people think he's kind of the Heisman Trophy favorite heading into the season. Just your thoughts about Mac Brown's kind of resurgence at North Carolina in that program.
Well, rarely does a second time around do as well. I mean, John Robinson was at USC twice, and second time around didn't do as well first time. But in this case here, Mac Brown's coming back with a national title ring on his hand, and a veteran staff, veteran recruiters, and very quickly has closed the gap with their neighbors to the south, and we're bringing back 18 starters. This is going to be an interesting year. We remember an epic ACC title game a couple years ago under a different staff, Larry Fedora, where North Carolina took him to the last possession in the ACC title game. This sets up to be kind of the same. Now, don't count your chicken before they hatch. That division that North Carolina is expected to win, the Coastal Division, every team outside of Virginia Tech has improved, even Duke, even though Duke got a long way to go.
Right.
That entire division has gotten better short of Virginia Tech, and that's a whole nother conversation with the issues they're dealing with.
We're gonna get to Virginia Tech.
Okay. All right. Well, it's we may extend your podcast a little bit. But North Carolina, they are set up to go. The schedule looks very favorable. Their number one game in division is Miami. They get right that in Chapel Hill.
Yep.
And the Hurricanes look loaded to bear as well. They bring back De'Aaron King. A question to see how he's going to be coming back from that injury. That injury could be the best thing that happened to Miami, getting him back another year, or he may not be the same player. That kind of injury, not a lot of guys come back to 100% the same.
Let's talk about Sam Howell. Obviously, he's played he'll be a junior this year. He's played both years. Started as a true freshman. A lot of people thought, I think he was supposed to go to Florida State for a while, and then he changed at the last minute, went to Carolina with Mac Brown. Probably some of that Mac Brown recruiting charm that he's known for. He's done, he's progressively gotten better and better. And again, many people think he's the favorite for the Heisman Trophy as we head into Labor Day weekend.
And justifiably, I will put my hand up and admit, nobody can see it right now, but I'll admit Sam Howell has exceeded my expectations. He was the number one quarterback in the year of this in recruiting in the year he came out of high school, but most people felt, including myself, in most years he wouldn't have been the number one because it was a very shallow pool.
Yeah.
But he has come out on the field, taken the quality coaching and Matt Brown's staff has given him, and he has taken it to the load at the bear. And he is, uh, he, I would rather face Wyatt Earp and OK Corral than this kid right now.
What he's got is he's got reps. He's played every play of every game for 2 years. So it's not like he's a first-year starter. I mean, he's gotten beat up a little bit. He's thrown the interceptions. He's had some great games. He's lost some close games. He's been in the Lions pit with Clemson a couple times. So he's been there in all the situations.
Most importantly, I've watched a lot of.
Well, we're having a little technical difficulties with Chris. We've lost Chris for a minute. We'll see if we can get him back.
But they have plenty to help out.
Yep. All right. You mentioned De'Aaron King. Let's go to Miami. Here's the other thread in the Coastal with Carolina. You mentioned De'Aaron King back for a sixth year of eligibility because of COVID and all that good stuff. I know he had the knee injury mid last year. Year 2 of Rhett Lashley, an important year for Manny Diaz. He's progressively getting a little better and better. But again, the Miami faithful, they don't want to see 8-3. They're tired of that stuff. They want to be in the mix to be in the title game, and they want to be in the mix to be in a potential playoff situation. Your thoughts?
Well, I tell you what, Manny Diaz, ironically a Florida State graduate.
Yeah.
And
when we were there, he was there when we were there. That's the funny part.
Oh, don't make him sound that old, Jason.
But he is.
He is. I'll tell you what, though, Manny Diaz has recruited really well. He hasn't done what Schnellberger did back in the day, declaring I-4 South as the state of Miami, but he has kept a lot of those kids in Dade County home now, unlike some of his predecessors.
Yep.
Especially in defense, and that's going to be tested because they lost a lot of depth on defensive ends this off season, and it's concerning enough to me. It's always a red flag when I see a head coach taking over a position. Manny Diaz is now going to go back to calling the plays on the defense this year. But I think he realizes it's more so about how important this season is to him.
Yeah.
And he's answering to a fan base that is not patient. They're not known for that. They have high expectations, where you can argue it's been on things that happened too long ago or not. But they have high expectations, and that's the job he signed up for. The defense on the back end is they're going to be tough to pass on.
Yep.
Which, as pass happy as college football is now, it's getting more and more so.
Right.
That's going to keep them in every game. If De'Aaron King doesn't lose his sharpness from his injury, I think Miami is going to be right there. It's just that challenge getting through that game at Chapel Hill.
Right. And that's we talk about it again. I don't have the schedule in front of me. When does that game happen? Is that more of a mid-season, late season game?
Well, that's looking up right here and looking at Miami, the schedule here, and second here, pulling up. This is bad radio. Sorry, folks. But
yeah, it's my fault. I should have have had that ready to go. But while you're looking that up,
got it.
Miami has never been in the ACC title game. That is hard to believe.
Well, they've never won the ACC title for sure, and for a program that has national aspirations,
right?
They're frustrated. You can see it and feel it. I'm looking right now, Jason. That game is on October 16th for North Carolina.
Okay, so mid-season. Yep. So that'll give De'Aaron King plenty of time, not plenty, but the time to get, if he has some rustiness from the injury and the offense, that with that stuff, he'll have plenty of time to be back in the mix as far as ready to go and all that. And the Miami teams of the glory days, they've been great on defense, defensive line, offensive line, and they've had skill players. I mean, obviously every good team's that, but especially Miami defensive line has always been the backbone of their great teams.
One key to that game before we move on, I noticed here Miami has a bye week going into that, whereas North Carolina has their revenge game against Florida State the week before.
Okay, that's
an important factor to understand there. See if there's any emotion left for North Carolina going into the next week.
Yep. All right, let's get to Florida State. Mike Norvell, year 2. The obviously the Florida State program has kind of been down and out the last handful of years with Willie Taggart and the end of Jimbo Fisher. Before we get to that, just your thoughts on Bobby Bowden, the passing of Bobby, and kind of that whole, his whole legacy at Florida State. And obviously we both have some connection there. What a life, what a life, what a career, and just what he's done for that campus and that community.
Well, stat that jumps out to me, and I did not include this in this article that you can find at acc.net, my memories about him, but that I discovered that stadium was there long before Coach Bowden, but he expanded 11 times during his tenure.
Wow.
That stadium was there before him, but he really did build that house. And we were the family that got to say it, to sit in it. And
sure.
I had my own dad that I wouldn't trade anything in the world for, but I tell you what, Coach Bowden was a father to all of us. He was a father of our program. And even when he had ups and downs, he wasn't perfect, but he didn't run from it either. And it makes you more of a man when you stand up to your own faults. And he'll be truly missed. And Coach Norvell told him a few days before, I won't let you down.
Yeah, Mike Norvell, obviously, he's got an opportunity here, obviously to rebuild the program from kind of the downfall that it's taken the last several years. And, he's got good pedigree of a winning coach, but it's about putting recruiting seasons together back to back. And more so for me, it's about player development. You can get the 4 and 5 star guys there, but you got to develop them into good players. And that's one thing Taggart didn't do a great job of. Bowden always did a really good job of developing guys. It might take a year or two, but he developed guys to where they were major contributors with the football team.
3 keys to coaching, and I think Norvell's got 2 of them down so far. Is 1 is recruiting, get the talent on the roster. 2, player development. We can already start to see that happen. And the 3rd is getting the players in position to win on game day.
Right.
So those are the 3 components that Nick Saban's got down. Most coaches, successful coaches, have 2 out of 3, and Norvell is right there. Right now in recruiting, they're number 9 in the rankings in 247 Sports, which is what I'm looking at right now. That puts them ahead of Clemson right now. If they're made to hold that, which I think they can do, if they can get to that 6-6 happy spot record there, they'll be the first team in the early signing period there with a losing record to sign a top 10 class. So
right.
They're recruiting, including especially their ace recruiter Alex Atkins on the offensive line coach. They're killing it, Jason. So I'm just telling Florida State fans, if you just get through.
And ultimately, if you're Florida State, you got to find a quarterback. You got to find that dynamic quarterback who can be a Deshaun Watson kind of guy, a Charlie Ward kind of guy that they've not had there in a little while. That they had Jameis Winston, obviously, 8 or 10 years ago, but you got to find the trigger man who can be the fixer when the offensive line struggles. Their offensive line has been pitiful the last 10 years, but you got to find that you got to find that trigger man that can be the difference maker for you.
Absolutely. Well, right now, Mackenzie Milton is maybe the best transfer in the country.
And we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how his injury, if he can be the same guy he was at UCF, before the devastating knee injury. It's an unbelievable story. If he were to come out and play well, it'd be a story of all stories during this college football season, no doubt.
It is. Even if he never plays it down, though, he'll raise the character in the locker room alone.
Right.
That's where everything has to start, and that alone justified bringing him in. But the quarterback competition, I'm telling you, Jordan Travis, who is known for his running.
Yep.
All my sources say his passing has just improved immensely, and he's pushing Milton on the job. And I guarantee you, Norvell will not hesitate to play the best guy available, regardless of how they came into the program.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is not a make or break season for Norvell, but you can't go. You don't want to be going 3-6 again. You at least have to be in the 6-7 win range type deal, to where you're showing progress, to where the faithful in the community and the boosters aren't saying, "Oh God, here we go again." So right. Again, nobody's expecting them to be 10-2, I don't think, but you got to show some significant progress and be competitive, and don't get blown out by Clemson. You can lose the game, but don't get beat 65-14.
Exactly. The key game, and I hate to make a week one game so important because you got a
Yeah.
whole season
Out
behind
to
that.
shoot, man.
But the Notre Dame game, if they can stay close, Notre Dame's replacing a quarterback, they're replacing 10 starters on defense.
Yep.
If they can keep that close, and the bulk of their recruits are having to visit on that game,
Yep.
it is so critical to look good in that game. If they can stay close, I'm saying like within a 10-point score,
Yeah.
show proof of product,
That's
and go from there. I mean, heck, if you can pull it off, you look at a 7-5 season, you're going to solidify that top 10 class and keep those kids in, and it may be the most critical game in Norvell's early part of his career.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It'd be a national TV game Labor Day weekend. You know, I think it's a Sunday night game, so it's probably a standalone game across the country.
National audience.
Yep. So, and from a recruiting perspective, you know, again, there's opportunity to come play at Florida State early in your career if you're a big time recruit. Whereas when you go to Clemson, that might not be the case. You even go to North Carolina, that's not as much the case. Of Florida, Alabama, you may have to sit, but you know, Florida State, there's opportunity to play.
Right now, you go to Clemson, it'll take about 3 years for Dabo knows your name.
All right, let's talk about a couple of kind of off the radar teams. Give me a team or two in the conference that you think could be a little bit of a pest that probably is not going to win the conference or be in the title game, but could give some people some problems.
Well, I got two right in Clemson's own division. I don't have a Wolf Howl to play here, but I'm going to tell you the NC State Wolfpack, Dave Dorn has had them just off the radar for a little bit. You talk about a team that doesn't have the roster Clemson has, but they have those kids that are just a notch below. And that game, as I'm looking at right now here, I'm telling you, that's September 25th. They get through their game against USF, Mississippi State, and Furman. Mississippi State will be a tough game on the road, but they get Furman a week before they open up against Clemson on September 25th. Watch out, because they get Clemson right there in Raleigh. They get a couple wolf howls that go off every time they score.
They've given Clemson problems over the years. They've taken Clemson to the wire a couple times in the last 4 or 5 years.
No pun intended, but those Wolves have been nipping at their heels for a while, and they may catch them this year.
Yep.
The other one I think is really sneaky and a little bit of a longer shot, but I think Boston College.
I agree.
I think Boston College going 5-5 in the first year for Jeff Hafley.
Yep.
Our Bucks listeners may know, longtime Bucks listeners may remember him as a defensive back coach here back in 2010 through 2012.
Okay.
He's been in and out of pro football and college football. He still has his entire staff. You talk about how a staff loaded and ready to get a blood out of a turnip. They're it. And look for Phil Jerkovic. I think he's the best quarterback in the league that nobody's talking about.
Notre Dame transfer. Came from Notre Dame. Yep.
And I think they're going to sneak up on some people. In fact, I wouldn't say I'm a betting man, but if you see a 7-win over under on them, take the over. Take the over on that. I could easily see 8-9 wins on that schedule.
I've heard a lot of good talk coming out of Boston College. I've listened to some different analysts around the country talk about them. And again, Hafley comes from that Ohio State. He comes from Ohio State, some of that pedigree. So he's accustomed to winning and knows that culture of winning. You know, rugged, Boston College, you're not going to get the 5-star athletes, but you're going to get the rugged kids. You're going to get the offensive linemen and, just the really tough kid who is used to playing in tough weather, bad weather, things like that. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm with you. I definitely think Boston College can be a threat to be a pain in the neck to the people in that division throughout the conference.
And here's where I always look for, Jason, on a team when they come back: offensive line. I don't care what scheme you run. I don't care if you're Mike Leach or Nick Saban or whatever. The beating heart of a football team is that offense.
Yep. Yep. All right. Clemson. Clemson is we are talking Clemson now. Let's go down to Clemson, South Carolina. No more Trevor Lawrence. You got DJ Ugalele, however you pronounce that name, is the new guy there in charge. he played sparingly last year. Obviously, he played very well at Notre Dame in the Notre Dame game, which they lost, but he played very well. Lots of hype about DJ. I think he's going to be a projected Heisman candidate either this year or next year. Your thoughts on Clemson? The machine just reloads.
Well, I tell you what, if I were Clemson, I only have one concern coming in that first 4 weeks, because their quarterback room changed drastically this offseason. Ungule's two backups. One was drafted and has signed with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Okay.
The other one is coming back from a knee injury and won't be available till October. Now, DJ's a big, big kid. He is much different than his predecessor in that sense. Just as athletic, not as fast a runner, but he's big and strong. But you may wince, Tiger fans, if he gets hit too many times, because if he has to go out of that game, any of these games early on, especially Georgia, right out of the gate, things are going to have to get real creative real quick. That's one position that could throw things into a tailspin for the Tigers. Massive
game against Georgia to lead off this, to kick off this season, for both teams. It's not an elimination game from a title perspective, national championship race, but, it's obviously going to be a situation where you're going to be what a huge leg up you'll be in the playoff committee's eyes if you win that game against Georgia. In the event for some reason you were to get knocked off in the ACC title game, winning that Georgia game is that much more critical, where you don't have the automatic, I won't say the automatic bid, but by winning the ACC title, they're going to be in the playoff. If they were to lose that ACC title game to a North Carolina or Miami, having that Georgia win in their pocket's could be a savior.
Exactly. And the other way to look at it is this game coming in for both those teams, you lose, you're not out.
Right.
But you pretty much have to take care of business the rest of the way.
Correct.
Which is a harder road for Georgia, clearly. But the Tigers, they can't trip them. They have had some landmines like Pitt 2-3 years ago that blew them up.
NC State had them on the ropes.
Yeah. Again, you got that NC State game 3 weeks later. I mean, there's very little room for error if you come up short in that game. Yep.
Very, very, very good thought. Obviously Dabo Swinney. Do you think Dabo's a lifer at Clemson? Do you think at some point Dabo's going to say, you know what, I want to dip my toes in the NFL waters?
Well, that's a decision you make. You don't get to go back. Ask Steve Spurrier. You don't get to go back. You don't get to go home again.
It's hard. It's very difficult.
Yeah. But it's one life though, and you only get one shot at things, and you don't take them yet, they pass. My thing about Dabo is I feel a sense of ownership from him. He has built this thing.
Yeah.
This is his baby. Next to his own children, this is the most important thing in his life.
Right.
And his thumbprint is on this program almost as much, not quite there yet, but almost as much as I would say Coach Bowden. There are other great coaches Clemson's had before, including Danny Ford, but Dabo is Clemson football. He didn't put that rock there that they touch, but everything else there, his fingerprints are on. So I wouldn't say never, but
not for a while.
I can't see it, man. I just can't see it.
Yep. No, he's got a dynasty brewing in Clemson. If he's willing to stay there, the next 10 or 15 years, I mean, he will be dynastic when it comes to his resume, of all timers, because it's a very navigatable conference football wise. Obviously, there's some talk of them merging or having an alliance with the Big Ten and some other things. There'll be some conference realignments here pretty soon nationwide. But for right now, he's got an opportunity here the next handful of years to really put his foot on everybody else's neck in that conference.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's their neighborhood. They're the bully, and they basically put out the marker for the last 7 years, which nobody's been able to answer.
Yep.
That come take it from us.
All right. Two more things get you out of here. You're listening to Chris Bond, the founder of ACCNation.net. We're giving you a nice ACC preview. And we got some other previews coming up of other conferences throughout on the Powers on Sports podcast as part of our college football preview. So definitely Stick around. You're going to hear previews about the SEC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, the Big 10. So lots of previews for you as we head into college football season, which is about 2 weeks away. 2 weeks, Labor Day, 2 weeks from today, we're playing football. So less than 2 weeks, actually. They're playing on that Thursday night before Labor Day. So we are almost there. All right, you mentioned Virginia Tech earlier in the podcast. We don't need to get into all the disasters of Virginia Tech, but this is a make or break year for Justin Fuentes. He probably survived last year because of the pandemic and all that stuff, because of not getting fired. But how that's gone from Frank Beamer to Justin Fuentes, where it's gone, is really surprising. They've just really struggled and have not been able to kind of fix it at Virginia Tech. Your thoughts?
Well, Jason, I got to tell you, to get straight to the point here, I think he's lost the most important thing with all the transfers that's come out of that program. He lost the locker room. And when you lose the locker room, it's only a matter of time. And
yep.
I don't ever want to see anybody lose their job. I know it's there, but I've seen this before. You've seen this before. He got in real trouble when he lost the Tidewater region in the recruiting wars to Bronco Mendenhall. And that was something Frank Beamer held for years. That's where he got Cam Chancellor, the Vick brothers. That area was the foundation of his dynasty at Virginia Tech, and Fuente has not been able to hold it. And when you lose your
relationships,
pipeline,
the high school relationships,
and he even had a defensive coordinator stick around for Bud Foster,
right?
Legendary Bud Foster, stick around for a couple of years to help with the transition. And he still has lost that locker room. He's lost the fan base. It's really hard for me to see in a non-COVID year now, seeing him make it through.
Right.
And he's one of the two coaches in this league I think are maybe looking for other opportunities before it's over.
Right. All right, so we've gotten to the end here. We've talked about lots of teams, lots of scenarios and possibilities. Give me you obviously, it sounds like we both have a heavy lean to Clemson is at least winning their division. Who do you like in the Coastal? Do you like Miami or North Carolina, or is there somebody else?
Much disappointment to Miami fans, and believe me, I'm not hating the Florida State man.
As people can't see that he's wearing a Florida State shirt and a Florida State hat as we record this.
Well, I come from a family of Miami fans. Some years I was wide left, other years my name was wide right. So I'm used to it. I can handle it. But I got to tell you, I give a 60-40 in going into that game towards North Carolina. It's at home. There's clearly that advantage. There is more coming back on both defensive and offensive lines for North Carolina.
Yep.
And you have two very experienced quarterbacks, so that's a draw there. Then it comes down to special teams and coaching. The special teams in North Carolina are in the top 10 from last year. That was an even COVID year.
Yep.
In returns and kicking, they had the edge there. And in a coaching matchup, it's impossible to pick against a guy who's got a national title ring and knows how to get it done. He's built a program before. He's doing it again. Manny Diaz, I love the guy, and I think he's doing a great job at Miami. He's got him past the point where they're winning the games they should win now, but I don't think this one's going to be in their cards.
So you got Clemson, North Carolina. Who do you like in that title game? Is Sam Howell going to win the Heisman Trophy on ACC Championship night?
I'll give you a prediction, Jason. Sam Howell is going to win the Heisman Trophy. Clemson is going to walk away with their 8th straight ACC title.
Okay, there you go.
I think Sam Howell could feasibly have 500 yards in that game, but there's just so many blue chippers on that Clemson sideline. Until somebody knocks them off,
right?
It makes no sense to pick against a champ.
I got you. Well, Chris, man, it's been a pleasure, man. Keep up the great work. Check out Chris and his staff at accnation.net. Chris does some writing, and then some other guys doing some podcast stuff on accnation.net. Keep up the great work, my friend, and great insight, and we will talk soon.
Thank you very much, Jason. Look to maybe happy to be on again sometime.
We'd love to have you, man. And keep up the great work and stay tuned, folks. We'll have our next conference preview coming right up.